Good morning, Max Ordinate Nation. I said that kind of weird, didn't I? I forgot the whole nation part.
You did. That was
Pause. It was kind of, it's
there was weird
early.
parts. But good morning to you. Happy Sunday to me. Monday to you. It's 2:30, 3 o'clock your time. I'm having a beer. You're not.
I could have, but I have to work today. It is Monday, and we are
Yes.
going out to it's week 2, right? It's week 2. So we start barricade training, right? Just to give you like, since I've been here, this is this is the third class that I've participated in as one of the instructors for the Marines. So first class was kind of just like I was there and I was putting in my input, but like the class structure was what it was. Like I'm
Yeah.
just there to,
Because you kind of walked into an existing structure that you needed to change, edit, or do whatever you needed to do.
yeah, like I wasn't part of it. And, so hey, they brought me in. So I go, I observe, see what's going on. Obviously, like getting along with the Marines here, the people who run the schoolhouse as permanent personnel, and just observing, but also teaching classes like stuff. So then, um, fast forward, second class, and we make some changes, and they're not drastic; they're just little changes, like drills that we might run, or making up some new targets that help us train the Marines, whatever. So now we're on the third class, and the structure of the class overall has just changed to the point where like it's unrecognizable to the first one that I was part of, because you're always trying to upgrade, right?
Hmm.
We're we're kind of attached to what we have to teach because of the qualifications and stuff like that have to be performed and these guys get evaluated on. But the way the schedule is not set in stone. Like we have freedom over the schedule and things like that. So, we got the first week where it's kind of bring these guys in. You don't know when the last time that they've trained is. So it's a lot of prone shooting, using the reticle, holdovers, prone, getting back to the basics, just
Hmm.
being perfect at the prone fundamentals, starting to incorporate some tripods, stuff like that. And then week 2 was traditionally tripod week. But seeing what equipment these guys have, what they show up with, they come, they either have like the Shadow Tech Hog Saddle tripod, which is basically a slick 700D tripod off of Amazon. It's just not green, it's black, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, like, it's a shit tripod, you know? So what I noticed is that we would spend the first week on tripod, but these guys would struggle to meet the standards, right? We would have a lot of first time failures for the qualification. You could spend so much time on it, right? But ultimately, it's hard. It's challenging. The targets are smaller, the timelines are tighter. Like this is supposed to be an advanced course. So now what we're done is the first week we introduced tripod. The second week we practice tripod in our warm up drills and things like that. But we're actually training barricade and alternate positions where we start looking at, principles of supported positions. And then we will do barricade and alternate positions for the next 2 weeks. So we'll spend 2 weeks on this, but every day we're still training tripod, right?
Hmm.
So now these guys are getting basically 4 weeks of tripod training so that they can really become masters of this while we're also training barricade and alternate positions, because they all have similar fundamentals, right? Shooting from a tripod, shooting from a tire stack, shooting from a chair, like they have very similar fundamentals. So it made sense to me talking with some of the other instructors here. Let's push the tripod qualification to week 4, and let's work on tripod for 4 weeks, but also incorporate other positional stuff And it felt to me like we would build a better end product with the students by doing it this way. So that's kind of where we're at
Yeah,
now.
and
So
it makes sense, right? Like it's hard to teach somebody the fundamentals of something when they're struggling with their equipment already. So let's teach them the fundamentals on barricades or tires or different positional shooting fundamentals. And then once they kind of have that worked out, give them their shitty tripod. So that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, so take the hardest skill and we're getting to spend more time on it while still accomplishing the other goals of the course.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to see how this course ends up. I think it's going to be really good. The students are they're locked on, they're interested. Like it's a good time. So that's kind of what is happening this week is went to the we call it the boathouse. We store all of our shit in there, like barricades, things like that. But there's a lot of shit in this warehouse. So I've got this giant truck over there on Friday last week, and I got a few students with me. I'm like just picking out random barricades. I'm like, "Ooh, look at that! That would be awesome to shoot from." And they're like, "What are we gonna do with this?" I'm like, "We're gonna shoot from this shit," you know, like
We're gonna figure it out.
I'm like, "Oh, do you see that over there?" And they're like, "What is it?" I was like, "I don't know, but we could shoot off of that shit. Grab it." Like, I've got this giant truck filled with shit that is we just have the most random stuff to practice shooting from. It's going to be a pretty awesome week, man. So,
Yeah, it's like our shed at the range, just 100 times bigger.
yeah. So, anyways, today's episode normally we would do a like weekend review, social media, kind of like a state of the industry, but we just did one of those. And,
Hmm.
you know, we don't need to do another one right now. So I figured there would be a really cool opportunity for us to kind of look at this past week where I had the students, we were out at a range, and like I said, it's majority prone. So we had a specific drill, right? And it was really just it wasn't like something that was planned. It was kind of an idea that popped up while we were out there of we had a lot of targets out. This is the most targets that we have ever checked out from the range facility. And we also got a lot of smaller targets, right? But we also have the normal size that we typically use, which would be like a 12 by 18 IPSC or a full size IPSC or, you know, whatever. So we got a hodgepodge mix of targets out there. We had 19 total steel targets. That's not including the movers that are reactive. So when you hit one of the movers, they bob if you hit them in a non-vital, or they go down if you hit them in a vital, and then they come back up, right? So not including those guys, we have 19 pieces of steel. So this is what the range looks like. Okay. I'm going to share this with you because I want to ask you a question, and I kind of want to see where you and the other call it, like other viewers or whatever it is, like where your guys' mind is when you see this and how you would break this range down. I'm gonna pull this up for you. Here is the range. So now you
Okay.
can see this was during one of the prep phases. So we've got a vehicle out there, and you know we've got some of the guys who work the moving targets, getting their little movers set up and stuff like that. So pay no attention to them. But this is the range right here.
Okay.
The distances that we're shooting out to are basically, you know, we have the target board at 100 meters, but then the first steel target, I believe, is at 160. And then the farthest steel target that we have set out is 656, I believe, right?
Okay.
There's 19 targets out there.
All
19
right.
targets. So the drill that we came up with is you have 5 minutes, 5 minutes to engage all 19 targets. You are only allowed to use holdovers, no dialing. Okay. And I'm going to give you 25 rounds. So if I, you know, when I did the math for this, it made sense. But I bust out the calculator and I'll do 19 divided by 25. That's 76 So I'm giving you enough rounds for you to have a hit percentage of 76% and still be able to finish the course of fire, right? But I wanted to see one, if there's 19 targets and there's 5 minutes, there's a little bit of speed associated with engaging these, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you break it down, I think it came out to somewhere around 10 seconds per shot or something like that. I forget what the actual time was, but it was fast, but then also at the same time, depending on how you would move through the range, you would have plenty of time.
Do we
So,
have to find them, or do we know where they're at? We just
I
have to
mean,
engage them.
these guys have been on the range now for
Okay.
3 days, so they
So we're
know.
we're not spending time finding them.
No. You know where all the
Okay.
targets are. These guys have built detailed range cards. They know
Yeah.
where all the targets are. They know what the distances are.
Okay.
So in reality, it's just having a method to go through the range and engage these targets, right? So 5 minutes, 19 targets, 25 rounds. Now the kicker here is you cannot move to another target until you have hit the target that you were planning on shooting. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's say you pick target. I don't know. Oh, you know what? Target 6 was a target some of the guys got stuck on, and we had a pretty decent wind coming through there around 8 miles an hour. So target 6 was an 8x8 plate, right? Little square, and it was sitting at around 450, or sorry, not 450, 350 meters. So it's roughly 2 MOA, and
Okay.
it had no backdrop. It was sitting on the top of a hill, and there was a big draw behind it, right? And the nearest, piece of land behind that target was around 500 meters. So if you miss, you don't know where it's going. Like you don't know
Yeah.
if you miss right, left, high, low, you don't know. So target 6 would really put a hurting on some of these guys where they'd shoot, they don't know where it went, they make a correction, just like, okay, I'm gonna hold more right, I'm gonna hold more left, like. So a lot of guys would burn rounds on that target, or they would shoot like 6 or 7 rounds at the target, and then they lose, they're out of ammo, they're done, right? Because you can't move on it until you hit that target. So not only
Yeah.
do you have to have a method to get through these targets quickly, but you also need to choose the targets wisely, because if you get stuck on a target like that, you could end up costing yourself because you don't know where the impacts are going. And now you really have to use your brain to think like, okay, I just held right 8 miles an hour, or 0.8, and I'm not hitting. So then what are you going to do? You're going to hold 1.2, you're going to hold 12 miles an hour, you're going to hold 4 miles an hour, like what are you going to do? So
I'm I'm gonna shoot the fucking dirt in front of it if it's that bad. Figure it out. I mean, if if you're stuck on it, you're stuck on it. If you got no way to, if you can't move on until you hit that one, I'm just gonna dump one in the dirt and figure it out.
okay, so that's not actually a bad method, right? I mean, you have to think, you can't just be thinking always tactical, right? Because in reality, like, I mean, I guess if you can't hit an enemy fighter, you might do whatever it takes to get that hit, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
um but this was more of a, how are you thinking, and where's your mindset at, and I want to see what your marksmanship skills are at this point, and I just want to see how you break the range down, like what what is the combat mindset, like. So basically what I saw a lot of is a guy behind his rifle, he's aimed in, right, and the time doesn't start until you engage the first target. So it was their choice on what target to start with and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So most of them would be aimed in at like the close 160 target. Some people opted to go for like a 300-meter target, and kind of get an idea what the wind was doing, uh, whatever their mindset was. But boom, they take their first shot. Let's say they hit. And then it was immediately to their armband to see what the dope was for their next target, right? So what they do is,
Yeah.
boom, they take their first shot, and then they'd be looking through their scope, and then they'd go to another target, and then they look at their armband, and then engage that target, and hit, miss, whatever. Then they look through their scope, find another target, look at their armband, and then have to go back, right? So the time that they were taking to hit these targets was slow because it was a constant, let me look at my arm, let me look at my arm, let me look at my arm, right?
And do they
And
have, I mean, I assume they have time to stage this, to prep for the stage. They got time to, like, they should be gaming this, right?
I gave them 5 minutes to kind of come up with a formulated plan. Like,
Okay.
this is a target rich environment. You have 5 minutes, you have 25 rounds, you have 19 targets, and I need you to get through this course of fire. And you have 5 minutes to come up with a plan that you think is going to be most efficient, right? Now, none of these guys are competitive shooters. So you're strictly going off of what they've been trained in the military,
Yeah.
and that's it, right?
Yeah. So the easy money is going to be, okay, well, I need to take out the closest targets first because those are going to be the easiest. But that may be a lot of body movement. That may be a lot of left to right. For me, my mindset is I'm going to engage it left to right or right to left, and have my dope card on my rifle where it's kind of within my eyesight. But not knowing how the wind is, not actually seeing the range, I don't know if that method would work. But that's how I would approach it. Would be either, for me, it'd be a right to left. Um, and if I already know what the yardages are, if I'm familiar with the range, then it's just a matter of holding over at each target. I don't really care what it is. My For me to game this, I just want to get to the target as fast as possible without a lot of breaking my position.
Yeah. So again, it was just to kind of see how they would break the range down, and a lot of them honestly did kind of go with what you were saying. Like, I'm going to try to keep it simple. Like, some people would just, I think the way that they wrote targets down, they just wrote them down as they were looking through like their optics or their binos or their spotting scopes. So, like, I had one shooter, he went from like 160 to 650, and then he went 200 to 550, and he just kept bouncing around the range with no particular order. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening here, but it doesn't look good, right? And then we'd have another guy, another student. He would start with a close target, and then he'd go to the left close target, and then he'd get into the middle of the range, and he would just get lost on where he's going. There wasn't a big plan with his thinking, and then he'd come across the target. He'd be like, I'm gonna go for target Charlie, and he'd look at his armband, right? So there was a lot of that. So I'm going to show you now. Here is the range with all the targets marked in red. All right.
Okay.
So I went through and I marked all 19 targets. So you can see the close target up front is 160. And then the far target, kind of right center range, is 650. Okay. And the 650 target was challenging because it was down in a draw. There was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
sagebrush around it. So if you miss, the chances of you seeing a impact in the dirt was a toss up. It was like 50-50, right? But now that you can see where the targets are, Jeph, right? Imagine you have 5 minutes, okay? And again, the range is it's fairly wide, but a majority of the targets are all centrally located, right? You got a few scattered
Yeah.
off to the left there, but most of your targets are in the middle there. So, would your plan that you just talked about, where you start right to left and work your way over, you still feeling good about that?
No, I would totally change it.
Okay, so now
I,
now what are you thinking?
so now I'm actually, what's the distances on the ones on the left, the
So the
far
one
left?
the ones on the left, you got the far left target there, which is sitting around 315 meters.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one just to the right of that is actually on that hill right in front of, like, to the left of those individuals putting up the moving targets.
Mm-hmm.
and that one's approximately 190 meters.
Oh, okay. So I'm actually going to work left to right, but anything that's below what I would say is the horizon, not the horizon, but below the ridge is what I'm going to attack, right? So it's going to be far left, next left, one at 160, because those are kind of easy pickoffs, and those just to get that out of my, I need to get those quick and I need to move over.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to work everything left to right below the ridge line so I can see my impact, so I can see my misses. And then I'm literally just going to come backwards from there. So I'm going to go left to right, basically no higher than like that truck. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that are above the hill. And I'm going to work my way backwards and hopefully I can get those once I've sort of established a wind with the rest of them.
Okay. So just to give you an idea, since you haven't been to this place, right, you can kind of see that ridge that you're talking about, kind of like middle of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
It looks very flat. That's a road. Okay.
Yeah.
And it goes all the
Okay.
way up above the white truck. Okay. And you can see it goes off to the right, and you can see some moving targets off to the right side of that picture. So that whole thing is a road, and that road is at 325 meters. So everything below that is 325 and in. There are only 4 targets beyond that. So there's only really 4 targets that are outside of your 325 yard line mark or meter line that you would have
Okay.
to be concerned with, um, like an exceptional elevation change. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, for me, it's kind of for me, it's picking off the ones that are easy, but still not. I don't. I wouldn't want a lot of excessive movement because it's only 10 seconds per target, right? I don't think. I think I would do exactly what I would say, except I would just instead of leaving the last whatever 6 or 7 that I said, I would just leave the last 4 that are beyond that 325.
okay.
But yeah, I would work it left to right, and then anything beyond that, I would come back right to left.
So here is how I broke the range down, right? Can you still see the new modified picture?
Yep.
All right. So I thinking with more of a combat mindset. Now I could use a max point blank where I dial one elevation and I engage all targets with that one elevation. I could do that, but I told these guys they can't dial. They have to do holdovers only. So,
Okay.
with that being said, I could hold my max point blank, whether it's 1.2
Mm-hmm.
mils or it's 1.5, whatever I choose as my max point blank, I could hold that, right? But the other problem is that you're still dealing with targets that don't fit inside of that max point blank size.
Yes.
So you could end up shooting over some of these targets that are close. So the way that I broke this down, as you can see the new photo that I put up, is I had reference points. So instead of breaking the range down left to right in like an Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie sector, I chose to
Mm-hmm.
break the range down going out to distance. So the close targets, anything kind of below that first ridge, that dirt berm, it's just a center hold, right? None of the targets are far enough that I need to hold over the target other than center, right? You got a
Yeah.
160-meter target, you got a 150 or 170-meter target. Like you hold center, you're going to hit these targets. And then
Yep.
the green zone was 200 to 275. So for that area, I chose to hold 1 mil. If the target's at 200, holding 1 mil, I'd be about 0.4 high, which is going to put me in the ballpark of 3 inches high, right? I'm still tagging every target there, even if they're 8-inch squares. So the zone beyond that, the red zone, they're like the pink zone, is 275 to 330. So for every target in that zone, I can hold 1.5. So when I actually laid down to shoot this drill, I started with the 160 right there in front of us, hold center, impact, move to the right of the 0 target board, hold center, impact, and then I jumped up into the green zone and I started engaging right to left and just holding 1 mil, bang, 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 right all the way to the left side. And then I jumped into the the pink zone, and I held 1.5 and I engaged that far left target. And then I come back to the middle
Mm-hmm.
and I just started executing targets, but I skipped any target that didn't have a backdrop, right? Now, one of the things that I stressed to the students is that they needed to engage, not only hit the target, but they should pay attention to how the target reacted. Where did they hit the target? And how does that correlate to the wind hold that they held? Are they holding too much wind? Do they not have enough wind, right? Because every target that you shoot is giving you a answer on how well you are calling wind.
Correct.
So, um, so I went through watching where I was impacting, making these shots, and then once I got to those 4 deep targets, then I went with an actual precise elevation hold. So for target 9, I held 4.4. For target 5, or target 10, I held 5.5. And then I think target Zulu and target Victor, same thing. I was holding precision elevation holds instead of let me just get rounds on target, because those are farther out there. I wanted to make sure that I was giving myself the best chance to get the hit. So does that make sense to you? Does that change? Like if you were to see me shoot this first, would you have changed your method?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and that comes from, honestly, that comes from your experience doing this type of, breaking these types of ranges down. Like I would have never looked at it that way.
Yeah.
I would had, but with you shooting it first, yeah, I would have totally changed my game plan.
So I wanted to shoot it first, and that's kind of a like a I don't want to say a requirement, but that's kind of a standard that I wanted, and a lot of the other instructors agreed with me, is like if we're going to put a qualification together, or if we're going to put a drill together, then we should be shooting it to ensure that we're not putting something out there that is impossible, right?
Yeah, but then they're going to watch you game it and it changes the outcome.
So for this specific drill, I didn't want to shoot it first because I didn't want to
Yeah.
change the way that they were going to do it originally. I wanted to observe them. So I ended up doing this drill after, but I had already set my plan in motion. But this really kept me from having to bounce around the range, right? I just had a methodical approach where every target in this zone, I'm going to do my engagement. And then every target in this zone from right to left, I'm going to do my engagement. Every target in this zone from left to right, do my engagement, right? But again, making sure I'm not taking shots at targets that don't have a backdrop until I'm 100% sure of what I want my wind call to be. So it was a good drill. Um, I liked I liked it. It was fun. I ended up finishing in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So it didn't quite take me 10 minutes per second because the target engagement was just there's my target. I know what my hold is, engage. Here's my target, same hold, engage. Same hold, engage, right? With this drill, one of the things that I did push to these guys afterwards when we debriefed is like, hey, this is the importance of understanding how your trajectory works, right? Knowing that you are holding 1 mil for this target, right? Let's say, that green zone that I showed you, the farthest target in that green zone, just before you get to like where it looks like there's a dirt road, that was kind of my reference point for what the zones are. And that's the important part too, is knowing when you look at this range and you break it up into zones, what are your reference marks to tell you that you're in or out of that zone so you know what to hold, right? So let's say I'm at the edge of the green, close to the pink, and I got a target at 275, but I'm supposed to hold 1 mil for every one of those targets inside of that green zone, right? 1 mil is the elevation setting for 250, shooting a 308, 250 meters, 1 mil. But at the edge of the green zone is 275. So if you look at your elevation setting for 275, it's like 1.2 or 1.3.
Mm-hmm.
So I start thinking about the targets, right? And this is kind of why I was looking at breaking it down this way. If I'm holding 1 mil and the target's at 275, the difference is a 0.3 mil. It's 1 MOA. So you're talking like a 3-inch difference from where I'm aiming to where the bullet's impacting is 3 inches vertical. If I'm shooting a half IPSC target or I'm shooting 8-inch square, I'm still going to hit, right? I have 4 inches to play with on that 8-inch square.
Yeah.
Or I have if it's one of the 3/4 IPSC targets, then I have 9 inches to play with. So again, it's all about understanding your trajectory and what realistically you can get away with. So I thought it was a good lesson for these guys. I think it changed how they would look at their range cards and say, okay, if I have rapid engagement, right? The zombies are coming or whatever scenario you want to play, right? It could be any enemy, but you think about what the goals are. And my goal here was to see how they process information, how they break the range down, and how attached to their gear are they going to be, right? I didn't have to memorize 19 different target elevations. I didn't have to write 19 target elevations on my armband, right? Because I feel like that's a little bit of a trainingism. Does that make sense?
For sure.
Like a training scar. You're like, okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
we got 19 targets out there. Okay, target A is this elevation, target B is this elevation. Well, one, if we were in a real scenario where you had 19 people to shoot at, they're probably going to be moving, right? Unless it's, stupid enemy fighters are the first ones to die. So eventually you only have the ones who are smart left over. So if they're smart, they're not going to stay in position and just let you shoot them. They're going to be moving, they're going to be advancing. So your target is not necessarily going to have a specific dope to it, right? So you're going to have target reference points. So with these target reference points, what are they going to be? Are you going to have 30 different target reference points out there and you're going to have to remember the elevation setting for each one? Or can you be a little bit more broad and say anybody in this zone, anybody in the pink zone is getting 1.5 mils and that bullet's going to smack them somewhere here, right? Or the
Yeah.
green or the blue, trying to make it simple. So in reality, I only had 3 elevation settings I had to remember. And then once I got to the deep targets, I could go with a little more precision and prosecute with some conviction. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That's a great way to look at it. And I think that's a great lesson because I wouldn't have approached it that way. I would have, so I would have dialed a maximum point blank range and worked off of that.
Yeah.
But um, not being able to dial and just working holds, I don't think I would have approached it that way exactly. So it's a good lesson.
It was fun, man. It was a good time. So we actually ran it twice. We ran it, what day was that? Thursday? No, Wednesday. We ran this drill Wednesday. And that was kind of like, hey, I'm hitting you with this. Let's see how you do. And there was a lot of lessons learned. There was a lot of like, fuck, I should have done this different. Or I got
Mm-hmm.
caught looking at my arm board too much. A lot of people timed out. I think the top score was 17. So it wasn't horrible, right? That's only 2 targets not engaged before they ran out of time or
Yeah.
ran out of ammo. I want to say that the average score was 13 or 14. So you're looking at roughly 5 targets not engaged. And then we ran it again on Thursday. We left all the targets in the exact same spots. I just wanted to see how they would approach the range differently, right? Now, even though the targets got left in place, and now they could come up with a different plan or learn from their mistakes. Okay, how am I going to approach this? We had another factor that came in, which was the wind and the rain. Thursday, the wind and the rain showed up, and we're talking like it's hard to see targets. The rain is pouring down, and now the wind is a true 8 to 12 mile an hour, right? So they got a whole different aspect of it. Even though we had some pretty decent weather on Thursday, we still saw the average score jump from 13 to 14 up to 16, right? So now we're only having 16 targets not get engaged, where some of that was just the guys had a good plan, but if they missed due to a wind call, seeing the impacts in bushes or wet dirt or something like that sometimes just wasn't happening. Guys weren't picking up impacts.
Yeah.
They weren't seeing the small detail. But at the same time, they were not allowed to have a spotter. This was individual effort. And, I even told them 25 rounds. If you shoot more than 25, you get a 0 score. So you better make sure it's 25 or less. So there was a lot of focus on making sure they had the right round count. There is no spotter. So it drove home the importance of having recoil management, being able to spot your own rounds, being in a good position, not sacrificing your position. So ultimately, I enjoyed the shit out of this. I know that there's, you know, you could sit here and try to pick it apart all you want. Like, oh, it's not a realistic scenario. There's not going to be 19 static targets just waiting to get shot. Yes, I understand that, right? But with every drill that you do, what's the purpose behind it? Does everybody understand the purpose, and were there lessons learned? And I feel like there were. So
Yeah,
it was a fun time, dude. It was a good time. I feel like this is
it
something
looked like
that
fun.
we could set this up at our facility, right?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of, I was trying to think about our range and how we have, a few markers out there where we have like, a dirt road that runs horizontally. Then we have a second dirt road that runs horizontally. And the difference between those
Mm-hmm.
is, I believe, from the first road to the second road, we're looking at 50 yards to 250. And then beyond that, you have a dirt road that travels vertically down the road. The first bend in that road is at 400. So now you have indicators from 250 to 400. And then you have another bend in the road, which is at, I want to say 550, right? So there's ways that you can break down every range that you go to. You just have to kind of think about not just left and right, because left and right helps you when you're trying to identify targets in sectors. And hey, Jeph, do you see this target in, sector alpha? Just before the bend in the road. So you swing all the way to the right or to the left, wherever sector alpha is, and you start looking at the bend in the road. And now you, my spotter, can identify that target, right? But if I'm trying to engage targets with distance, then I want to start using those depth sectors of fire. And what dope do I need? So we're gonna have to try this when I get done with
Yeah,
this
I think we should.
course. When I get done with this course and I come home in May, we got to set this up.
Mm-hmm.
Put targets
We'll
in
set it up.
random spots and just get after it, right? And hopefully we'll get blessed by the sniper gods with 40-mile-an-hour winds, and it'll be
That would
really
be nice.
challenging.
And then
So
maybe we'll shoot it from the high angle side going backwards.
I
Even
was
more
just
fun.
thinking about that. Like the high angle sight would be
Yeah.
bitching as well, turn the range
Yeah.
around, get up in the high perches, and like have to do the same thing. I think it'd be really cool. So, anyways, man, you got anything saved on this this drill or the range layout? Anything that you would add? Like, you know what? Now that we've talked about it, I might also do this. Like, you could still do max point blank. You would just have to hold, right? You just hold 1.5 on every target. The main issue would be those close ones, Jeph. If you held 1.5 on the 160-meter target, those were 8-inch squares. You
Mm-hmm.
would you would shoot over the top of those if you were holding
No,
1.5.
but I would game those. So I would game those first two because they're close, they're quick. I would just do a bottom edge hold and just
Yep.
knock those out and then go about my business. Because those are two easy ones to remember real quick. Bang bang and then move on.
Yep.
But again, not knowing the wind, not knowing that range specifically. I mean, I think your way is the way to do it. But yeah, that range, having seen it, I've seen little tidbits of it. I haven't seen the whole thing. That looks like a fun range to set targets up on. That looks like you can have a lot of fun with a lot of different drills. I really like, if you had movers going front to back because of the way the roads are. I mean, there's a lot of cool things to be done on that range.
Oh yeah. So we did for Thursday's drill, I dropped 2 pieces of steel and we had one mover like you were talking about running down that vertical dirt road. So that mover is moving at more of like a half angle to the shooter. And then
Mm-hmm.
we had a mover on the far back road moving left to right at roughly a walking speed. So I wanted to see one, were they going to pick up on that target? Were they going to hold the right lead? And then at the same time, when were they going to engage that target? Were they going to do it first, or are they going to wait until the end where it's one of their last targets to engage? Because there is no backdrop. If you miss that target, are you going to pick up your rifle, your projectile trace, and see if you missed in front or behind? Did you miss lead trail? Did you miss trail? Are you going to, what are you going to do? some people picked up on it, said, I'm going to wait, engage that mover last, or I'm going to engage it in the middle, and I'm just going to have confidence. Like, it's, dude, seeing the mindset of a student really helps you move forward with each individual and how you can mold their mind. And it's pretty.
Oh, definitely.
So, anyways, that is the lesson for today, kind of breaking this down. Anybody that's listening, you guys watching the YouTube channel, I hope it helps you, whether you are training for competition or you are, military, law enforcement, or just a guy out there who's, trying to improve for hunting. Like, this could absolutely help you with the hunting side. If you're trying to hunt, for you, example, Jeph, you're out there, you're hunting coyotes. I know you're trying to call them in, you're trying to get them close.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're sitting in the back of your lifted pickup truck, you're calling in coyotes, but you have I don't want to say like a drawn out range card, but you've scanned the area and you've identified certain terrain features where it's like, okay, if I get homeboy to pop up in this area, I'm holding 1.5. If he comes into this zone, I'm holding 1 mil. If he comes into this zone, I'm holding center. Like, it
And
could
that's
be
exactly
that.
and that's exactly what I do. So when I'm hunting during the day, it's typically, you want as much you want as much view as possible. You need to get a really good position that you can kind of see wherever they're going to come in. And truly, that's what we do. The second I sit down, I get a couple ranges. This is 200. This is 300. This over here is 450. And because you're not going to have time to shoot these when they come running in. When they come running in, they come running in. So you've really got very limited time to take your shots. And sometimes they'll haul ass in and then they'll stop and you got 5 seconds. You need to figure it out. So it's very relevant to what I do. Even deer hunting, you don't always have that time to shoot a range. So I think this has more relevance to hunting than even competition shooting. I mean, it's a great drill.
Yeah. So it's just how you see the range and picking up new tips, new tricks, new methods of doing things to be more proficient. So, yeah, man,
Mm-hmm.
it was fun. I'm looking forward to this week, and any other cool drills or things that we get to do this week that might pop up at the spur of the moment. Definitely share so we can break it down. But that's it, man. That should be a good start to this awesome week of, what is it, the week of April 23rd. If you're going by
Yeah,
Sunday, you're going by Sunday. How was your birthday?
it was good. I got to relax. I didn't have to do a whole lot around the house. So today is sort of my do around the house day. I'm prepping tomorrow for a golf tournament out in LA. So I'm just trying to take it easy and not wear myself out too much today, which is why we're doing this a day early. But yeah, the week coming up is going to be pretty bitching. And
So
yesterday was I got to relax a little bit yesterday, which was nice.
did you did you get help with filling out your social security paperwork yesterday?
I did. I did. Because I didn't have my reading glasses on to be able to fill out them tiny little letters.
So old, man. Uh, dude, I saw some of the workouts that you're doing, and you know, obviously we have shared about like some of the workouts that I do going to the gym and like, some of the weightlifting. And obviously I'm training for a completely different thing. Whereas you're looking for
Yeah.
mobility and strength and like improving, not just your golf game, but your overall life. And I'm kind of training for a specific competition, but some of the mobility stuff that you're doing, I'm sitting there on like one leg at the gym, like trying to go down into a single leg squat. And I'm like, is my ass heavy or can I just not balance, forward and back on one leg? Like, what is the problem here? Why can I not do this? And then it comes down to like ankle mobility. So now I'm looking up like, how do I stretch not just my ankle
Yeah.
going, toes down, but how do I stretch my ankle going toes up so that I can be more mobile? So I'm practicing stuff that you're showing, man. So
No, and it's funny because, I spend a lot of my time just doing balance work where I'm just holding a dumbbell and I'm standing on one foot and I'm just moving it around and I'm just doing foot strength work. And
yeah,
it seems so like, whatever, what are you doing? I might as well do yoga. But it really has really strengthening my balance muscles has been a
yeah,
game changer for me. But yeah, it's funny. I told you the other day, I did Wednesday my normal stuff. And I was like, oh well, I'll just go to the gym and crush legs with Melissa. And doing it 2 days in a row just killed me. So I'm trying to relax today because I kind of overdid it this week.
I mean, it's good though. One, it's good to push yourself, but
Yeah.
I this is probably a conversation for another day. Obviously, it's just a long, deep rabbit hole that we could get into, but you're
Yeah.
doing a lot of these workouts where you're focusing on improving areas that are going to not only help you in life, but help you in golf, right? Whether it's your swing
Mm-hmm.
rotation, your leg strength, your hip mobility, like all of these things. And it's it's interesting, like you're dedicated to improving yourself on, that front. Whereas you talk to shooters and it's like, okay, like if you're going to get into a low kneeling position, like this is where I need you. I need you to be in this low position, sitting back on that heel. And they're like, oh, my ankle doesn't bend that way. I'm like, well,
Well, then
it
work on
doesn't,
that.
yeah, it doesn't bend that way because you haven't stretched and put forth the effort, or it
Yeah.
doesn't bend that way because you got pins in your ankle and it physically doesn't do that, because there's differences, right? Like one of them you
Yeah.
can control and the other is a disability that we have to work around. So which one is it?
Yeah.
And that should tell you like you're not doing enough, if you're not
Yeah.
stretching, if you're not trying to increase your mobility, then you're just adding a limitation to yourself that is making your performance worse. But that's something you can control. So why aren't you doing something
Yeah.
to improve it? So all right, my man, it's good chatting with you this morning. It is
Same.
3:50 in the morning for me. It is time for my run and gym session before we get started on this glorious day of more sniper training. So it should be good.
Yeah. Have a good day at that. I'm excited to see what the rest of this how the rest of this class turns out. And sometimes I forget that you have new students every class. So I'm like, oh, this is just the same guys he's training. But I forget that every class you have a new set of students. So it's
Every
pretty cool to
class.
watch how the class is developing and how your students are developing within the classes.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm looking forward to sharing it. Hopefully we'll get some of these guys on the podcast just to talk about their experience, and we'll see what they have to say. It'll be no filter. So they
All
could
right, bro.
come
Well,
out
it's
with
good
some
talking to you.
wild
Good
shit.
chatting to you this morning.
You too, man. For everybody else, thank you guys for listening. Appreciate you. Jeph, you always come through with those awesome at the end episodes. Like, don't forget to check out our VIP Patreon subscriber stuff. And then
Definitely.
go to the YouTube channel, go to the website, look at the free targets that you can download and train with. And then on top of that, we have been experimenting with advertisements. So if you are hearing advertisements just pop up in the middle of the show, I mean, it is what it is. Like, it's an
We're trying to
opportunity
stay
for
paid.
it's an opportunity for us to monetize this show. So hopefully it's not
Yeah.
too bad. But Jeph,
And please don't
time,
forget,
man.
if you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. Do not forget to click the bell icon to get notifications. If we can do that yet, I think we can. But it
Yeah.
only helps us. Please drop your comments down below. It really helps us with the algorithm to just get this out to as many people as we can.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised about the comments on YouTube. A lot of good feedback. So awesome, dude. Hey,
Definitely. All
I will
right, brother.
catch you in a couple days and we'll get after this again. Until then, have a good weekend, man.
See ya.